Hello, welcome back to another video. Today I am actually going to show you a battle video. So my opponent was Hiroshineko, and we started the game by flipping a coin, and I ended up winning the coin flip. So I got to choose whether I went first or last. I went first, so I ended up gaining my starting hand, which is drawing 5. And what's unfortunate is I actually drew a worm, which kind of sucks because I can't actually use the worm's effect. But that's fine, not a big deal. So I gained my 4 scales, and I see I drew another worm. So I go ahead and use my second worm in order to draw an extra card. And then I actually start playing. As you saw, we both start off with 1,500 Fortress HP. So I draw my card, and I get myself a potato sack, which is a pretty nice thing to have. I go ahead and play my Gust of Fungi for 2 scales and pass the turn, so that he can start his first turn. And I draw my card from Gust of Fungi after it triggers. And I drew myself a Reverse Clockworks, which actually got nerfed because I felt like it was too strong. So I draw my 2 for the turn and gain my 4 for the turn. And I also draw my 1 from Gust of Fungi, and this is where I set up a big play. So I gain my 5 scales, and I play myself a potato sack for 5 scales, so I'm left with 0 scales. After I do that, I use a card called Wildfire, which lets me draw 2 by discarding 1 ball specifically. And since I already can't use my worms in my hand, I get rid of one of my worms, and I draw 2 in order to go through my deck faster. I use my potato sack's ability that triggers off of Wildfire when it actually gets you actually draw cards. Potato sack will do an extra attack. And I also equip a Hollow Shield to my potato sack. I attack normally with my potato sack, and then I pass the turn, and after the turn passes, my Gust of Fungi triggers, so I end up drawing 1 and attacking with potato sack again, which is a massive 630 damage on the second turn, which is pretty devastating. Now Hiro gains his resources for the turn. He has 8 skills, he can play any big card, and I was anticipating him to play something big-ish, somewhere around there. He goes ahead and plays a Flame Hooves and a Frost Peak. I was expecting his Frost Peak to actually become a protector for him, but seems he was afraid of my Gust of Fungi being equipped with a Worm Tunnels card, so which would increase its defense last minute, so they would lose the battle. So he goes ahead and removes it before he attacks me, and he uses Howling Winds, so he has to expel a card in order for me to shuffle a card back into my deck that's in play. He goes ahead and gets rid of my potato sack, which I understand because my potato sack dealt that much damage to him last turn. His Frost Peak attacks me directly, which is only like 160 damage, so it's not that hard or that big of a deal. I didn't think much about it. So my potato sack died, and Hiroshineko passes the turn here. Now I draw my 2, and I also gain my 4 scales for the turn, putting me at a nice 4 scales. And I go ahead and use my Reverse Clockworks just because I was not satisfied with my draws that turn. And Reverse Clockworks actually got nerfed because I felt like it was too strong. But it allowed me to shuffle 2 cards back into my deck and gain 3. And also Potato Sack got nerfed, don't worry, that card was super broken. But yeah, especially with Baum being able to draw so much. Anyways, I used a Wildfire to draw some more, and I get rid of my Worm, of course. And I'm hoping to draw into a Scales, because I really needed that at this point. That would really help me here. So I draw my 2 cards, and I end up drawing a Leaf Blade and a Roth. Both cards not being too useful at the moment, so I end up just waiting out a turn. But before I do that, I also expel his Frost Peak so that he can't get such a big protector in his protector zone. So I end my turn, and now it's his turn. He draws his 2 and gains the Scales. Gets rid of his Frost Peak, of course, that I got rid of. And yeah, he plays a Robbery, which really messed up my plans here because I was hoping to pull off another Potato Sack play here. But yeah, that really sucked there. I was very disappointed by that. And then he attacks me with Flame Hooves and ends his turn immediately, which I was okay with, I guess. I gain my 4 Scales for the turn, and I draw my 2 cards for the turn. I was still not satisfied with my draws for the turn, so I end up shuffling back my hand or my 2 cards that I drew that turn, and drawing back 3 cards instead. I was really hoping to draw into a Scales. Unfortunately, I did not draw into a Scale. Instead, I got 2 Dual Hatchlings and a Leaf Blade, which was not very helpful for me. So I ended up stalling for a turn by using a Dual Hatchling, and that costed me 3 Scales, hoping that next turn I can actually play a Potato Sack, but I cannot. Most likely, because of the way he plays, there's a very good chance that it will not be worth playing Potato Sack next turn. But he ends up using Flame Hooves here, right after he gets rid of my Dual Hatchling. So he ends up dealing 150 damage to my fortress. Now it was my turn. I ended up removing it. I didn't see that he had attacked at first. I go ahead and draw my cards for the turn and gain my skills, and now I can actually play my Potato Sack, but it was definitely not worth it because I had no way to actually draw without paying extra. So I stall another turn and hoping that he doesn't deal a lot of damage to me this turn. And I draw my 1 from Gust of Fungi. He goes ahead and uses his turn to get rid of my Gust of Fungi. And as you can see, that he has accumulated a bunch of skills, whereas I have to I'm constantly pressured to actually play protectors, which on my side I feel like I didn't play too well. I should have played a bit more offensively. If I played more offensively, then I definitely would have done a lot better. But I didn't. I was too concerned about my actual fortress at the time. So I end up using my skills that I finally drew into to get to 10 scales, and now I had this big brain play planned. So I go ahead and play a Coco King, which allows allows it to be the only targetable card that which allows it to be the only targetable thing unless you have something that's higher scales than it or equal scales. And I end up using a Jewel Hatchling on it, and I thought that was genius because, okay, he has to have really strong stats, or relatively strong stats, to actually get over my Coco King. So I basically have 2 protectors, but also an attacker at the same time. So I go ahead and use my Coco King with a Leaf Blade in order to deal 430 damage to his fortress. And thinking that I had done a really good play this turn, I had passed the turn, and I'm immediately devastated when he does his plays. So he gets to 15 scales, which is maximum scales that you can have at a time, and he goes ahead and plays a Sorberus the Adapting Dragon, which completely counters my idea here. So he goes ahead and does that, and he uses his Sorberus to get rid of my Coco King, and he uses his Flame Hooves to get rid of my Jewel Hatchling, making my last turn basically a waste of 10 scales. And so yeah, that was a really annoying part of the game, but yeah, he played really well there. So my Coco King went to waste, unfortunately, but I can't do anything about it. If anything, I only helped him by playing that Coco King, which really sucked. But yeah, now he had a Sorberus at a massive 430 attack, and I had nothing I could do about it. Especially because he played a holographic shield right after he played his Sorberus the Adapting Dragon. He also played a protector, so I couldn't go offensively immediately. So he passed the turn, and I had like nothing small in my hand, and I think the reason why is because I did not add anything small, enough small cards in my deck. But I do draw into an Indigo, which is nice, so I am able to stall for a turn. I end up using my Blizzard Caves in order to try to stall for another Gust of Fungi, which in hindsight is probably a misplay. I should have let him actually deal that, and I would have been able to go a little offensively and go back on him. He only had 440 fort damage, and if I had been a bit more careful with what I did here, and if I had saved 3 scales there, I feel like I would have done a lot better, as I would have been able to pull off a double potato sack play next turn, which is more valuable than what I did do here. But I go ahead and pass the turn. He accidentally played a Blade of Frost because he didn't know, he probably misread it or something, but he also plays an Infected Code Cyan, which once per turn it'll allow you to lower a unit's defense by 80, but when it dies, it's like a hot potato, and it goes, the other player chooses a new target for it. So I end up playing it on a Coco Soldier to get rid of his protector. He gets rid of my Indigo, and of course it didn't even matter that I played 2 protectors there. He goes ahead and deals 430 fortress damage to me here, and so yeah, that was also very annoying. I go ahead and draw my 2 cards for the turn, and I gave him 4 skills, and at this point I had no idea what to play. I had nothing small except for this 1 Jewel Hatchling. I go ahead and use Infected Code Cyan on his turn to lower his Coco Soldier's stats by 80 each, and using that Howling Winds, I go ahead and expel the most useless card in my hand, which literally contributes nothing to defense, which is what I was trying to focus on here. And I go ahead and play my Jewel Hatchling to stall another turn. Hopefully he did not have anything to take out my Jewel Hatchling, which I was hoping for, but I knew was not going to be the case, because he ends up using something else. I go ahead and shake the Infected Code Cyan in order to take out his Coco card, so he ends up cloning the Infected Code Cyan onto my card, but he can't trigger it on my turn, of course, because it's the first. It already got triggered once this turn. but he uses an invisibility cloak and plays a card face down, which was felt very risky to actually attack. So I was even more cautious this time. So he ends up attacking my Jewel Hatchling now that he had played another Infection Code Cyan. But the Infection Code Cyan doesn't spread to his because it was removed by attack this time. So he ends up dealing another 430 damage to my fortress. At this point I knew I had lost, but I tried my best to pull through another turn. So I end up drawing my 2 cards from my deck, and I see that I have a take 2, which I feel like was a very good thing to have, because I felt like he had something really big in his hand and he was not playing it yet. I just had the feeling, especially with all the setup that he had, all the skills. So I end up gaining my skills by using a resource of resources. I put my skills up to 7 here. And then I want to get rid of his Cerberus, so I played Dissolve in order to get rid of his Cerberus, because I felt like at this point, okay, now this is comeback time. It's comeback time. And I was wrong, because I'm like, okay, but I can't play anything. And I was really worried that if I had played Take 2 before, I would have nothing to play, especially because Potato Sack was literally the cheapest thing I had left in my deck. I had way too little cheap cards in my deck, in fact. So yeah, I played my Potato Sack in a Protector Zone just because I had no other choice, especially because I had no idea what he had under the Invisibility Cloak, and it would be way too risky to go try to attack it with Potato Sack. And I drew my 4 cards, he drew his 4 cards, and now it was his turn. So he ended up using a Battle Horn, but he also has an Ostrich Guardian of Nosha here, which he actually doesn't use the effect for. But he ends up attacking my Potato Sack with Flame Hooves, taking it out, and he attacks me with the Ostrich Guardian of Nosha directly, as it seems. And at this point, I had like nothing left. I had 150, he had 440. It was a close match. Looked like a close match at first. I definitely could have won if I played a bit better in the middle of the game. But yeah, I had nothing I could actually play. I had 4 scales, and all my duelers were 6 scales or higher actually at this point, and I had nothing I could play. I added too many big scale cards and not enough small scale cards. That's my conclusion. But yeah, I said GG. And yeah, that was the end. Thanks for watching. Hope you enjoyed the video. Hope it's engaging enough. Tell me what you thought in the comments. Do you think the game looks fun? Yeah, subscribe if you want. Comment if you want. Like if you want. Dislike if you want. Join the Discord server. That's not a choice. That's a command by me. See you next time, I guess. And goodbye. Have a nice weekend, I guess.